You're up, Commissioner.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I don't see any changes to the agenda, so I'd ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as posted.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Chantel.
Chantella Ulu with Indigent Services. The case that I have for you this morning is case number 20230014. It's an application for cremation expenses through Manning Wheatley Funeral Home in the amount of $1,200. The applicant is a 26-year-old female who is applying for cremation expenses of her 49-year-old mother. The deceased was a Bannock County resident, was not a veteran. It appears that the deceased meets all Idaho Code criteria to be eligible for assistance. Bannock County does appear to be the last resource for payment of these final expenses, and the applicant does agree to pay a $25 repayment plan upon approval of this application.
Mr. Chair, on case number 20230014, I make a motion that we approve this as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Start highlighting the box that we need to sign because we missed the X once in a while
Okay.
in the wrong box.
I'll pay more attention in the future.
So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
all right, Julie.
Julie Hancock, Bannock County Elections Administrator, here to canvass the votes. No Jason today.
He's playing during Commissioner.
Oh, is he? No. I didn't need his signature too.
You know where to find him.
So these are his, but I'll take those back with me, and that's for you guys.
So Julie, will you give us a breakdown of the election?
Yeah, it went really smoothly, because it would when you're only dealing with 3,400 voters out in the community. Not very many fires to put out. All of the polling places were open on time. Road and Bridge delivered everything they needed, so it was a pretty quiet day. And then, just look at these things, and it's still the same amount of work, and in a lot of cases, the same amount of money for a very dismal turnout. And so I hope that this legislation does go through. I think we'd have, if we got up more on a consistent, where all of the levies are happening in May, then we would get a more consistent and better turnout, I think. But nobody really knows that you go to the polls in March.
Right.
So that will help, I think, a lot. But otherwise, the count went really well, went really smooth. Our numbers all matched up. So, yeah, it was a good night.
And so if I'm looking at this right, you had 8.5% of the registered voters that participated.
Yep. 42,000 eligible. Something like that. What was
Yeah,
it?
and your
40,727 eligible.
And your early votes were 828, so most everybody showed up on that day.
Election day, yeah. That's a little bit higher for early vote for an election of this type. I'm not sure why, but I think that's a trend that's kind of growing anyway. But
Well, that's,
you can do it.
as I looked at this, the highest precinct was just under 16%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, was that
And
precinct one?
everything else was,
Yeah.
a lot lower than that. And like Jeff just said, 8.5%. And people want to talk about property taxes, and that's what this is,
Right.
100%.
Right.
And you got 8.5% of the people that voted, and just over half of them, so 5% of the people voted for a lien against everybody's house.
Yeah, essentially.
Basically. It's pretty amazing. And then people want to come in and talk about taxes, but they
Right.
won't go and participate in a vote.
Right, so the first thing that we do after election is get the payroll, which is paid through accounts payable, right? Accounts payable. And we put that together so that our poll workers can get their checks on time, or, in a more timely manner. That's not something that we sit on. So I can tell you right now that right at about just over $27,000 just to staff the polling places. That doesn't count ballots, that doesn't count our time, supplies, just staffing the polling places.
What did we do to inform the voters and get voters out? Did we do much of anything?
Yeah, so, well, I have to do, legally, I have to put 2 legal notices in the paper. The first one is the legal notices along with the polling places, and then the second one is, and the first one is 12 days out, the second one is 5 days out, and then the second one includes sample ballots. So there's been times, especially since they combined school districts with cities, there's been times we've had 11 different ballot styles in one election. And so it's like takes up the whole, which is like a $3,000 expense. But I think legislation is talking about if you put it on your website and in other social media areas, you don't have to put it in the paper, so we'll see where that goes. But then Emma and I communicate on a pretty regular basis about getting the current information on our website, and she puts stuff on Facebook, Twitter? Facebook. Yeah. So, and that, I think that helps a lot. And then the school district, it's really, it's their election, we're just facilitating it. So they send texts to all the teachers and all the parents. So that's the majority of probably who comes out.
Okay.
I'm sure we could do better.
Well,
I'm
that's,
not sure how you could do better. I mean, I think you're doing everything you can.
Well, yeah, I could go on the news more often. Don't really want to, but that's one of the best ways, though. Like next year, because it's a presidential, we'll between Jason and I, we'll probably really, get that. Here's early voting times and stuff like that. And I think that'll, of course, it's going to be a heavy turnout anyway, but
right.
yeah.
Good, good. Well, again, like John says, I don't know what you can do better, but again, where we're just facilitating it for School District 25, the onus is on them, but still, like with Ernie, 5% of the voters put a lien on everybody in the
Yep.
areas.
Yeah, so thanks
Property.
for that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you, Julie.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Motion?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the canvass of the votes as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, Adam.
Good morning. Adam McKinney, this morning as 911 Communications Director. I am today seeking a signature on an IPAWS AlertSense COG Memorandum of Understanding, and I will explain what all those acronyms mean. Basically, FEMA has delegated the authority to use the Integrated Alert and Warning System, which is the system that will allow alerts to be sent to television, radio, the weather break-ins, to the county sheriff. The cities would like access to this system because of the wildfire season. This originally started with the City of Pocatello Fire Department asked to get access to this system. And because FEMA delegates that authority to our sheriff, we wrote up a memorandum of understanding that would allow those PSAPs, Chubbuck Fire and Pocatello Fire Dispatch, to gain access. They've already got access to our AlertSense. This is the other side of it. This is the big side that would alert television, radio. But the sheriff was concerned that we had only certain designees in those departments, in those PSAPs, and they need to be trained, they need to be certified through the FEMA organization in order to have access to it. And then we still maintain, the sheriff maintains the ability to delegate that authority to these guys. So that's basically what this MOU does, is it gives the PSAPs a representative that would have access to the IPAWS system, so they wouldn't need to go through the sheriff, as long as it is, or that person or those people are trained and certified to use the
Who's
system.
going to monitor that? Will the sheriff monitor?
It'll be, yeah, Captain Ames and the sheriff, yeah, absolutely.
So if I understand this correctly, if something happens in Pocatello that is a major emergency, that designated person can punch the red button.
Yeah.
And that goes out.
Yeah, correct. Right now, they've got to log into the AlertSense site, and they can send the reverse 911, that's like the alert texts to people's phones, but they don't have the ability to do the television break-in or the radio break-in or the FEMA alert break-in or even the emergency broadcast system. Those systems are that iPause component of this, and right now they don't have access to those. All we've got to do is, after they're trained and certified, we give that person or those logins access to it. Then they can use it directly. And again, the biggest impetus for this was that they wanted to have the ability to alert for wildfire season as we're coming
And
up.
so do they have to notify anybody before they do that, like call the sheriff or?
No, that's the current standard, is that they've got to call the dispatch center, and Captain Ames or the sheriff has to give the okay to send that alert, and then it needs to be sent through our dispatch people. This would give them the ability to send those alerts directly, but again, only by the people vetted and certified by the sheriff to do it, so.
So along that, in 4B, it says in the event of emergency, Bannock County could request assistance. It doesn't say in here that they just get to do it, but Bannock County could request assistance, so.
Yeah, and there was a lot of back and forth on how this was going to work. Originally, the sheriff had decided he kind of wanted them to have to ask to send these alerts, and we'd originally told them, well, we will send these alerts for you, no problem. You just have to take the step to let our dispatchers know. And the fire department did not like that, because they feel that in the case of a life-threatening emergency, they don't want any time to be wasted on it. And the vice versa is that the sheriff's department, if there's no one at our dispatch center, which would rarely happen, but if there wasn't somebody at our dispatch center that could send one of these alerts, it would go back the other way, and they could say, okay, Pocatello, you can send this alert for us because we don't have somebody. Because again, the logins are what determine who has the ability to send these. So not every dispatcher has the ability to send these either. So usually it's a dispatch supervisor or someone that has the ability to send the iPause alerts. It's not, we're not giving blanket authority. And when we looked at this, the COG, the Collaborative Operating Group, the cities can apply to be their own COG, but it's a 6-month to a year-long process, and then they would also incur an additional fee. 911 currently already pays for this alert sense system and the access to this alerting. We had actually looked at originally saying to the cities, why don't you go to FEMA, get your own COG, but if they did that, then they would also incur an additional fee, because then they would have to subscribe to something that we've already got and provide for, so.
So the dispatch in Chubbuck and Pocatello will be the ones that will actually push the button?
They could, yeah, they could, and again.
Depending on who they do.
Yeah,
Right?
this kind of shores up where our 3 dispatch centers are geographically dispersed, but we're linked all together as one. Right now, this function can only happen at the sheriff's dispatch. So this COG MOU basically gives those other dispatch centers the ability to send those alerts in lieu of or with the permission of the sheriff.
How much time do they estimate this will save by giving them minutes, seconds?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably minutes. Currently, the idea is, the biggest thing that the fire department wanted was for wildfire alerting. Right now, if you think back to the Charlotte fire, it was kind of almost an immediate cluster once everybody started to get on scene. We were requesting assistance from the federals and the state, and by the time we had so many people involved, sometimes this stuff falls through the cracks. So the idea here for the fire department is, if we could send these alerts at the very beginning of the incident, it gets them out of the way, and then we can go coordinate with EOC or emergency operations. So.
But what you just said is part of my concerns in doing this is, just like the Charlotte fire, that's in the county, but there's a lot of people that assumed authority just because of the title that they have.
Sure.
And I don't want, I mean, we just had the comments on the Blue Moon, and we had kind of 2 different command posts depending on what branch of the emergency response group showed up.
From what I understand, it's the county that should be leading these things when there are disaster. And, this is just messaging per se. I think that's what you're talking about speaks to another level of emergency management, because really, you're right. The county is the one who designs and drives that emergency management response. This is kind of a component of that, but it's not necessarily, this is a public alert versus who's going to take that incident command. And I think that's another discussion that needs to be had, because you're right. Sometimes the city is there on the scene first, and so they take charge. But when we're talking about emergency operations, it is technically, as determined by FEMA and the IOEM, it is the county who's responsible for that stuff.
And did legal look over this?
Yes.
So the only out clause I see in it is if somebody screws up
Absolutely.
and does something they're not supposed to.
And that was the original kind of holdback on the sheriff's dispatch team was, we don't want to give access to this system to just anybody because Bannock County is responsible for this system. We are the cog. Bannock County is not Bannock County Pocatello Police Department. It's not our PSAP team, it's our sheriff's department who's the cog, which is why this was written so that the sheriff has to vet whoever's going to be able to get access to this system. We're not going to give it to the entire dispatch center because then you absolutely could have that scenario where somebody, and that said, the system that, in order to send one of these alerts is not simple. I mean, the alert send system is straightforward, but it's not, these should not and will not be sent accidentally. Whoever sends these, you've got to put in a PIN number, a one-time passcode, and login and password to that site. So,
Each time you send something, that has to happen?
correct, correct.
Yeah, it sounds like this will certainly make things more efficient. It sounds like it'll save money. Something could go wrong, but that wouldn't prevent the sheriff from taking this back over if
Yes.
it didn't work out.
Yes, absolutely, and I believe he reserves the rights to have access to this because it's delegated by FEMA to the county sheriff as to who uses this system. So he could absolutely say, you know, if we had an incident, he could take it back and say no. And again, the cities do have the option to apply and get their own setup, but we're trying to work collaboratively and save them a bit, so.
Okay. Well, I'm good with it. So, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the iPause, Alert Sense iPause MOU as presented.
Any questions?
Nope.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you, Adam.
thank you very much.
All right, Anita.
Good morning. I'm Anita Hymas, Bannock County Assessor, and I'm coming before you today with the real estate contract that we have with the Greater Pocatello Association of Realtors. And what this does is it gives us access to their system called Paragon, and it allows us to have access to their sold information, which enables us to be able to have fair and equitable, better access to fair and equitable values because we can see the sold prices. And it's been an agreement that we've had with the realtors for well over 30 years. We've always been able to have this. It's honestly, it's way more a benefit for us than it is for them. What it allows them to do is have access to our information, so they can see tax dollars, they can see values, they can see room counts, different features on the actual homes, so that they can kind of compare things to and use those. So we've done this for years, and unfortunately, back in 2020, we had some issues in our office that caused the realtors to actually come up with this contract. And it is a contract, from what I understand, is a contract that's used by multiple counties that allow, that their real estate associations allow access to. So
And it went through legal.
we did go through legal because it was with Alan.
My understanding is that legal has not signed off on waiving the indemnity clause.
What legal told me was that they knew that I hate that word, we shouldn't say it, but the indemnity clause, 7.1 in the contract, they knew that that would be a questionable clause, and I chose to come before you anyway and make a claim and ask.
I think that the head of the Realtors Association, that's the Robin, that the lady Robin named on this contract is one of the signatories, I believe. The signatory on behalf of the Realtors.
Right, is Ruby.
Ruby, sorry. I don't know how I got that. But anyway, I think probably maybe we should have Jason have a conversation with this lady about this clause prior to signing this agreement. I do not believe that in the state of Idaho, as a county, we can accept an indemnity clause. And so I think we need to take that, at least take that step to have that discussion.
Well, in visiting with, I'm going to throw him under the bus here, but in visiting with Jason Dixon, Ruby really, and I don't either, I mean, Ruby and I really don't have any authority to change this contract. Ruby, all she is doing is signing on behalf of the Realtor Association because she's the president here. That's all she's doing. I mean, this is a document drawn up by their attorneys. And so she is not going to really have a lot of say in this.
Well, somebody over there is going to have some say. You know, in our organization, we would certainly have some say and do have some say in respect to how contracts are put forward, and I'm sure it's the same in their organization. The thing I'm saying is not that I don't want you to have this. I think it's good that you have it. But I think we should take whatever steps are necessary to protect the county's interests prior to entering into an agreement. And that's a step that I think still needs to be taken, is go to their board, explain the situation, and look at getting this indemnity clause removed.
And I'm really not trying to be argumentative here. I'm not. But I'm going through great steps to repair damage that's been done with the realtors. And we need this contract. And I'm not asking anybody to do anything that they shouldn't be. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to say that the last time this was signed was in January, I believe, of 2020, and that clause was there. And so it's just the identical. The only difference on this contract is my name's on there. We have a new commissioner, and we have a new president of the association. Otherwise, the contract is identical to what it was in 2020.
So
But I
while
will
we're
do
talking about
whatever.
this, Ryan, go ahead and say your concerns.
The only concern that legal brought was, as Anita stated, was just the indemnification clause. And I know the commission's very familiar with the legal's view on the indemnification purpose when the county is being required to indemnify, especially with the statutes and the Constitution out there. There might be some issues.
So there's two things. Rather than hold this up, I'd rather just put a line through this. And then you come back to 8.72, governing law. The agreement shall be construed, interpreted, and applied in accordance with Idaho law, without regard to conflicts of law principles. So that's our reason for putting a line through it, is because it is in conflict with Idaho law. Correct?
In the opinion of legal, yes.
And so that's what I would like to do, is just put the line through it, submit it, and then have them come and talk to us if there's a question. Rather than go back and forth and have their lawyer and our lawyer, let's, that's my opinion. I'd rather just put a line through it like we have in the past. Sign it, send it to them. If they have concerns, they come back to us. But in good faith, we're moving forward. Gives you a contract that we've signed.
And if they deny it, then I guess they deny it.
Well, and then they need to come and talk to us, so that not you as the middle person or us as the
Right,
middle
right.
person. Let's just have a conversation with the people that are making the decisions, because we have Ruby and we have you, and neither one of you have signing authorities. So if it doesn't go forward, then they just know that we're moving on it. We want to work with them, but state statute states this, and we want to work together. That's the way I feel.
I'm okay.
Okay with that?
I'm okay with that. I mean, I think it'd be just as well to have the discussion prior to, without, I mean, maybe they can have the discussion, we've already got it lined through, and maybe they'll take it out anyway, so,
Maybe it won't come before us again.
maybe, yeah. No, I'm okay with that.
So, do you want me to make that motion?
Please.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we sign this contract, putting a line through the indemnification clause 7172, because it contradicts 8.7, and, but we move forward with an agreement. Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Stay there. Anita, stay there.
Do what?
No, have a seat. It is good to have you here. You submitted a letter for tax cancellations,
Yes.
and so while you're here, I just appreciate you being here, and I thought
And
we
just
could.
on the record, you guys really gave me a heart attack.
And did you find a ladder when you got here?
I haven't yet, but I'm working on it.
And this goes back, some of these go back to the decision that we made last week. Last week?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. And we separated them out, so we put on one letter of cancellation, just all the reservation properties. And then, yeah, so it would be easier for you to distinguish what we
Yeah.
did.
And we had two requests to come before the board to talk about these. Has that been solved?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. If moving forward, we're good on the ones that wanted to come talk to us. Does the board have any questions about the tax cancellations?
I do not.
Okay. Then I'd ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the tax cancellation request as presented.
You were here, I wanted you to participate. Thank you.
Okay.
Christy Davenport.
Christy Davenport, Management Assistant. I am here requesting signature on a performance agreement with Snake River Doodles and Friends, which is a petting zoo. We have decided that we would like to have the petting zoo available at the Independence Day celebration this year. I have already spoken with a sponsor who is willing to sponsor the full cost of this. So we would pay it out as the county, but be reimbursed by the sponsor. So the original agreement was drawn up by the vendor, and it went through legal, and legal wanted an indemnification clause. So we went ahead and added that. I sent it to legal and have not heard back yet whether they are happy with it as it is right now. But I have presented it to the vendor, and she is okay with it the way it is. So
Okay.
I wish, yeah, that, you want me to run out and grab him?
Yeah, because I want
Okay.
his, but before that, has this gone through Scott?
Scott has given Cheney the responsibility to deal with the Independence Day celebration. And so she knows about it.
Okay,
So
but,
if you would rather go through Scott first,
well, all things that go through the event center,
okay.
in my opinion, a contract needs to
Okay.
have Scott's stamp of approval. Eventually, he's the one.
Do you just want a verbal or a signature on there?
Either way,
Okay.
either way. So this is the Doodles
Oh, yes.
contract?
Did you see the updated one that I sent yesterday?
I saw the one, the used our form that we sent over.
That one was kind of messy. So what I took was the information off of theirs and the indemnification clause that we've used in the past.
This is what they're talking about.
Go through.
So everything to 7 is exactly what was on the other one.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That was, our main concern was just because it was a petting zoo, if something were to happen. Not that I'm anticipating that it will, but.
Well, That was my same thoughts when I read through it. What's protecting the county?
So that looks good to me.
Okay,
Are you good with this then?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay.
so just make sure it's okay with Scott and then
We'll,
resubmit it for signature?
no, we'll go ahead and
Okay.
move forward.
So you want an approval pending Scott's
Yeah,
verbal?
yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chair, make a motion that we approve the contract as presented pending verbal approval by Scott Crowther.
A motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And aye.
Doesn't like it'll be fun though.
All right. Braden.
All right, Braden Clayson, Chief of Staff. Kim's one up. Got the experts with me today. So
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
This is gonna be good.
Kim Oakley, District Ranger, U.S. Forest Service.
So we are bringing before you the grant again for snow plowing. Kim has looked into it and she's found a couple of things that have kind of, I guess, gone haywire a little bit, it sounds like.
Well, in order to answer your questions, I did some research yesterday, and I'm able to answer your questions, but my end game this morning is not to sign the draft modification as it's presented, because I found something in a previous modification that should be modified. And so instead of modifying a modification, we're just going to put another statement in this to document the change. And so my attempt is to explain this without getting into too many details.
Okay.
But also, and answer any questions you have, and then also educate Braden on this so that I'm not the only one that knows what's going on. But I took a deeper dive in our systems and billing behind the scenes and just have a better understanding of this. So do we want to start with your questions?
Sure.
I know the first pressing item was we talked about the 5,000 then to the 11,000 as far as the cost.
Okay. So we have a 5-year master agreement started in 2021. And with that first year in 2021 was $5,000 was added. That $5,000 expires in 2024. So it sits there and we charge against it. It's in our system, it's committed, and we charge against it, and then when charges actually show up, it's billed to Bannock County. And it sits in a separate job code. And then 2022 comes along, we add another $5,000, and we can spend that $5,000 plus whatever hasn't been spent on 21. That $5,000, it's a 3-year cycle, expires in 2025. This modification in the 5-year system is for another $5,000, and that'll expire in a 3-year cycle. So from what I can tell, we have $53 left in the first year from that first $5,000. We have $3,900 approximately left in last year's, and we haven't signed the $5,000 this year. It'll all expire after the 5 years, but it collects until you will pay no more than $5,000 per year. And so the statements are trying to get at that. And if you look into your own accounting, I mean, I'm hoping these numbers would match up, but I have no way of seeing that from where I'm sitting. Does that make some sense?
Well, that I appreciate, because as I was looking at this, I didn't understand it that way.
Yeah.
I was understanding that we went from 5,000 to 10,000 a year to 15,000
Okay,
a
no.
year. And I'm going, wait a minute,
No.
this isn't right.
It's definitely cumulative from $5,000 per year, and it collects until we spend it down. And because of the timing of the winter and our fiscal years and our, signing of modifications to add an additional $5,000, there's always a lag, or we get behind. But in looking at these closely, the financial plan spells out that stuff. And what I noticed is on page 1, you can say cooperator contribution, which is Bannock County. That's a column in green, and Forest Service contribution. It's at the very, very top of the first page of the financial plan. But if you turn the page, those column headings are missing. And if you just sort of transfer, if you look at the column, pretend those column headings transferred from the first page to the second page, you'll see that Bannock is only responsible for $5,000.
Okay.
And then it shows what the Forest Service is responsible, and then it just shows the whole amount, the whole project cost that's being shared by what we absorb and what you guys pay for.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense than
Okay.
the way I was reading it.
Okay. So the way it's presented, it gets confusing, but you're absolutely not responsible for more than $5,000 per year. But there's a demonstration of where we're also going to pay for that, and it's basically broken down between personnel and equipment. The Forest Service went through a big budget modernization a couple of years ago, and our grants haven't caught up yet. But we used to ask for a breakdown, like, can you pay half of our salary and half of our equipment? Because for whatever reason, we weren't paying ourselves salary, and we were asking people to help us. And that's why the general accounting office said, you guys need to pay your employees first. So what we need is all $5,000 towards equipment. That's where we need money, because equipment breaks down, the chains are being torn up on the grader, et cetera, et cetera. But since we signed an agreement in last year saying that, and I'm looking at not this draft that we're about, might sign, but this the draft previous, the majority of it did go to salary. So we can't just charge it to equipment without having a conversation and documenting it. If we're audited, it'll show that we didn't spend the money like we said we would. So before we sign this draft, I'd like to add a little statement saying we're going to spend our money over here that hasn't been spent yet on equipment instead of salary, and tweak that 982 that somebody put to salary again, and put it all towards equipment.
Okay.
So you're still paying only $5,000. We would just like to have it. The real need is to put it towards equipment and not salary. That's just an allocation situation.
And that explanation solves a lot of things, because the other one I had was, and it sees, now that you've transferred them headings over, we're not paying for training, we're not paying for signage and prep site.
Right,
Which
right.
I thought we were, and I'm going, what, this doesn't make sense to me. And like I said, I thought we'd gone from 5,000 to 15,000, the way it read, and
Right.
yeah, we had a lot of snow this year, but this is the first year we've had a lot of
Yeah.
snow, and
And sometimes more
it just doesn't make a lot of
information-
sense.
Right, more information is not always more clear, right? And so they're trying to explain that this is a cumulative thing, but the way it's written, it's not easy to understand that. I agree, totally.
If we're still at $5,000, I have no problem. That's where I'm at.
But instead of signing it today, I would like to remodify this draft so that we can clean up get last year's stuff and get it in the right place and be able to pass an audit.
Love to have that happen.
Okay.
So,
And then I'll just leave some extra notes with Braden, and then when we work that through as quickly as we can, when it comes before you, those are going to be the changes.
so my question, Kim, is if this is a 5-year contract with the amount you're budgeting for this year going away, will we come back and do another modification in another year or two to add 5,000 for year 3 or 4?
Right, so we always do a modification to add funds. So we'll have modification 3 next year, we'll have modification 4 the final year. And then then the master agreement will expire, and if we still are working together, then we'll have to do a whole new 5-year master agreement.
Okay.
And the master agreement expires in '25, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I highlighted that, and I'm gonna hand this off to you.
Okay.
Yep, 25.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just wondering why we don't show a $25,000 commitment over the course of 5 years, but
Well, I guess, I'm not sure, maybe the way it's written, it's like, we're agreeing to work together, and then every year you guys decide how much to give us, or we negotiate that, and it's just typically 5,000.
okay. That makes sense to me, so I'm okay with that.
I mean, and I think, We could do it differently, like you're saying, to make it a little more efficient, because basically I think our accounting system puts a commitment by you guys in there, and then we just charge against it and then bill you for it, and so you're not giving us $25,000 and then we just use it. It might make it more efficient instead of signing a modification every year.
That was, as I was looking at it, I was thinking to help solve some of this confusion as we
Yeah.
go back and forth.
Right.
If we did it as a 5-year thing, spelled out not to exceed $5,000 a year for the term of this one.
And I guess the devil's advocate on our side would be, well, if stuff goes up significantly and this is just not doable on our side anymore, maybe we would want the ability in that 5-year period to renegotiate.
Right, right,
But that's for the future, I guess.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Good, that'll work.
Thank you very much for
Yes.
coming by.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Much appreciated.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and go to signature only. And Emma, you can come on up.
Morning, Commissioners. Emma Iannacone, Public Information Officer, seeking signature for the contract with East Idaho Radio to advertise our household hazardous waste days for 2023.
And your office has looked at this now.
Yes, legal has looked at it, and they have asked me to strike through the line that says the advertiser warrants that they have the rights to all the music and other material used in their advertisements and indemnifies the station from the consequential damages in this regard. And East Idaho Radio is aware that we have struck through that, and they're fine with it.
Okay. And it is red lined in both contracts. Questions?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the contracts with East Idaho Radio as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I think legal may have to drop off treats.
I'll take treats. What for?
All right.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you. We'll go back to the resolutions. We have resolution number 2023-34, approving February 2023 alcohol licenses. Resolution number 2023-37, approving February 2023 salaries. Resolution number 2023-38, approving tax cancellation request. And resolution number 2023-39, rescinding resolution 2015-57. Comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve resolution 2023-34, -37, -38, and -39 as presented.
You have a motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have a letter of agreement with Dina Dye with the stipulations for relief on past taxes. Everybody have an opportunity to look at that?
This is the way you do
Questions? A motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the property tax relief on parcel RP DLB 004200 as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have February 2023 Commissioners' Proceedings.
Chair, I make a motion that we approve the Commissioners' proceedings as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Under the consent agenda, we have approval for meeting minutes on March 7th, 9th, and 14th.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with that being said, we'll